There's a saying that goes, when you retire, your mouth can get you in more trouble than your money ever will. Because here's the truth. Once you leave the workforce, people start paying more attention to your words than your actions. Every story, every confession, every detail you share, it gets remembered, repeated, and sometimes even used against you. And that's why today's video is one of the most important ones you'll ever watch, because we're talking about 9 things you should never tell anyone as a retired person. These are the things that can cost you peace, privacy, and even your financial security if you're not careful. So let's start with the first. Thing number 1, how much you have saved. It's natural to feel proud of your savings. After all, you've worked hard for decades to build it. But once you start openly talking about how much money you've saved, invested, or inherited, you unknowingly invite judgment, jealousy, and sometimes manipulation. When people know the exact size of your nest egg, they start seeing you differently. Suddenly, your generosity might be expected instead of appreciated. Family members might start hinting for help or loans. Even friends might think you're doing better than you really are. And that can create pressure to live up to an image. But the truth is, financial peace comes from privacy. You don't owe anyone an explanation of what you've earned, what you've spent, or how much is left. Keep your numbers private, because once they're out, you can't take them back. And remember, your retirement fund is meant to protect you, not to impress others. The smartest retirees are the ones who look modest on the outside, but live comfortably behind the scenes.
Thing number 2, your estate or inheritance plans. This one is especially important. Many retirees make the mistake of sharing their will, property details, or who will get what after they're gone. But here's the problem. When you tell people what you plan to leave them, you change the way they act today. Suddenly, the conversations shift. The respect might fade, replaced by subtle entitlement. Some may try to influence your decisions or pressure you to reconsider. Even your closest family members can unintentionally start treating your assets as their future instead of your present security. The best approach? Keep it private. Work with a trusted attorney, organize your plans quietly, and lock them away safely. Let your final wishes speak for you when the time comes, not before. Because when it comes to money and inheritance, silence isn't secrecy, it's protection. You've earned the right to enjoy your retirement in peace, without family politics or guilt-driven decisions. Thing number 3, your health problems. Now, this one might sound strange. After all, sharing your health issues feels normal, especially with friends or family. But here's the harsh truth. The more you talk about your medical conditions, the more people start to see your illness instead of you. When every conversation begins with what's aching, what medication you're taking, or which doctor you're visiting, people subconsciously begin to pity you, or worse, avoid you. They start assuming you can't do certain things, that you're too old for certain plans, and that your life revolves around your limitations. And you deserve more than that. You're not defined by your blood pressure, your back pain, or your medication list. Of course, you should always talk openly with your doctor or someone you trust deeply. But beyond that, keep your health details selective. The less people label you by your conditions, the more they'll treat you like you. Here's another angle most retirees overlook. The more you emphasize your independence and positivity, the more people around you respect your strength. Protect your dignity by talking less about your pain and more about your purpose.
Thing number 3, your health problems. Now, this one might sound strange. After all, sharing your health issues feels normal, especially with friends or family. But here's the harsh truth. The more you talk about your medical conditions, the more people start to see your illness instead of you. When every conversation begins with what's aching, what medication you're taking, or which doctor you're visiting, people subconsciously begin to pity you, or worse, avoid you. They start assuming you can't do certain things, that you're too old for certain plans, and that your life revolves around your limitations. And you deserve more than that. You're not defined by your blood pressure, your back pain, or your medication list. Of course, you should always talk openly with your doctor or someone you trust deeply, but beyond that, keep your health details selective. The less people label you by your conditions, the more they'll treat you like you. Here's another angle most retirees overlook. The more you emphasize your independence and positivity, the more people around you respect your strength. Protect your dignity by talking less about your pain and more about your purpose. Thing number 4, how lonely or bored you feel. This one can be tough to hear, but it's vital. Many retirees, after leaving their careers, feel a gap, a sense of emptiness that comes when the structure and social life of work suddenly disappear. And while it's natural to want to talk about it, constantly telling others how lonely or bored you are can actually push people further away. It's not that others don't care, it's that people, especially younger ones, don't always know how to respond. What begins as sympathy might slowly turn into distance. They might avoid you to escape feeling guilty or responsible for your happiness. The best solution isn't silence, it's redirection. Instead of saying, "I'm bored," say, "I've been thinking about trying something new." Instead of saying, "I feel lonely," say, "I'd love to catch up." Those small shifts change the tone from helpless to hopeful, and people are drawn to hope.
Remember, loneliness grows in silence, but connection grows through curiosity. Keep inviting life in, one small step at a time. Never underestimate your ability to start fresh, even in retirement. You can still join clubs, volunteer, mentor young people, or explore hobbies you never had time for before. Because here's the truth. When you fill your days with purpose, you stop needing to fill conversations with pain. Thing number 5, regrets about your past. Everyone has moments they wish they could change. The business that failed, the job you didn't take, the relationship that didn't work out, or the opportunities that slipped away. But here's what many retirees don't realize. When you constantly talk about your regrets, you unintentionally trap yourself and everyone around you in a loop of what-ifs. People start to associate you with sadness rather than wisdom. And over time, your own mind begins to replay the same disappointments, keeping you emotionally stuck in the past. Here's the truth. Your past doesn't define your worth. Your reflection on it does. You've lived decades of experiences that can inspire and teach others, but you don't have to share every painful detail. Instead, turn those regrets into quiet lessons. If you made mistakes, it means you tried. If you lost something, it means you risked. And if you learned from it, it means you grew. So stop telling stories that end with guilt. Start sharing stories that end with growth. Because regret doesn't belong in your retirement. Wisdom does. Thing number 6, your family's problems. This one might sound harmless at first. Maybe you're venting about your son's divorce, your daughter's money struggles, or your grandchild's attitude. But here's the problem. Once you start sharing family drama with friends, neighbors, or even distant relatives, it rarely stays private. Retirees often underestimate how fast personal stories spread, especially in small communities or family circles. What you share in confidence today can turn into gossip tomorrow. And that gossip can damage relationships, trust, and your own peace of mind.
You might think, I just needed to get it off my chest. But the truth is, there's a better way.
Instead of sharing your family's struggles, pray for them, support them quietly, or talk to a counselor or someone objective who can guide you, not judge you. Because once personal stories leave your lips, you lose control of them. Protect your family's dignity the same way you protect your own privacy. They deserve that respect, and so do you. And one more thing. When you stop feeding drama with attention, it loses power. Peace doesn't come from talking about problems, it comes from letting them rest where they belong, behind closed doors. Thing number 7, how much you dislike someone. It's human nature to have opinions about people. Maybe a neighbor annoys you, a relative said something hurtful, or a former coworker disappointed you. But as a retired person, expressing too much negativity about others can backfire fast. When you openly criticize or gossip, people begin to see you not as wise or honest, but as bitter or judgmental. And that's not fair to you because that's not who you are. You've simply lived long enough to see through people's behavior. But wisdom knows when to speak and when to stay silent. Holding back your dislike doesn't make you fake, it makes you focused. Focused on your peace, your happiness, and your energy. Because the more you talk about the people who frustrate you, the more you give them power over your emotions. Instead of saying, "I can't stand that person," say nothing, and keep living your life beautifully. Maturity is when you stop needing to prove who's right or wrong. You just rise above it. Remember this, silence often wins the battles that words can't.
Thing number 8, details about your finances or pension. Talking about money after retirement can be tricky. You might think you're just making casual conversation, sharing how much your pension pays or how you manage your monthly expenses, but even innocent talk can attract the wrong kind of attention. People might start comparing, judging, or even asking for advice that puts you in uncomfortable positions. Worse, some might see an opportunity to take advantage of your openness. Your financial life should be as private as your passwords. Whether you're struggling or thriving, nobody needs to know your numbers. Because the moment you reveal them, people's attitudes shift. Sometimes subtly, sometimes drastically. Instead, talk about ideas, not income. Talk about experiences, not expenses. The less people know about your finances, the more control you keep over your peace and safety. Thing number 9, who you plan to trust or depend on. This one is rarely talked about, but it's one of the most sensitive. Many retirees begin to mention who they plan to rely on as they age, a certain child, a relative, or even a friend. But once you say it out loud, you can unintentionally create jealousy, tension, and expectations that can damage relationships. People may feel hurt, overlooked, or pressured, and it can spark drama that lasts for years. The truth is, your trust should be earned quietly, not announced publicly.
Keep your plans private until you've made firm decisions, and even then, only share them with the people directly involved. Trust is personal. It's not a public discussion. Now, before we wrap up, let me say this. Retirement is not a time to hide. It's a time to protect. Protect your peace, your dignity, your privacy, and your independence. The less people know about your private life, the more power you keep over your future. Because in the end, wisdom isn't about what you say. It's about what you choose not to say. Thank you for watching. And if this video gave you something to think about, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Your privacy is your peace. Protect it.